And we're back with another episode with my girl Nilem. I'm trying to be cool and hip with my girl Nilem with
Hey.
with coffee talk, bridging the gap between Generation X and who are you? No, not am I X? Yeah,
The
X and who are you, Nilem?
millennials.
Millennials. I'm learning all the time, and I'm trying to be cool. If my sisters are listening, don't say anything because you guys make fun of me. Okay. All right. So I hope you guys have remembered to subscribe and like and all those things you're supposed to be doing. And also, before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit more about who I am and what we do. I am Dr. Chriselle Lewis, and I am a co-founder of UnitedWorks.org, where we teach, where we do life coaching, where we do ministry, and we do all the things to help God's people. So if you want to look us up, please do. We're at www.unitedworks.org. And don't forget again to like, subscribe, share, and comment all those things that we do so that we know that you're here and that you're hearing what we say. So today, Neela and I are going to jump right into a topic that all you single ladies, I'm sure are gonna really I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. All you single Christian ladies, because this is a Christian focus, ladies are gonna really want to care about listen to. Neelam said she was okay with me surprising her with the topic, so I'm gonna go right ahead and jump right in. Okay, Neelam. So today we're gonna be talking about a topic that I actually don't know what you guys' generation thinks about. I have no idea. I know what ours did, but I want to know what you think. Sex before marriage. What do you guys think
Oh.
about that topic?
Oh gosh. At least from my perspective and what I've lived. I mean, I'm still single. Um, always been, but it's for me, it's always been wait until marriage because it's not something to be played with, and this kind of stuck with me. It's something God created, and it's beautiful. But for that same reason, you need to take care of it because sin can distort it in such a way that so many things happen, and it takes away that beauty that God intended it for
That's
in
good.
that sense.
That's good. So what do you, but you still didn't answer the question, what is your generation? Your Christian generation, because
My generation,
you have
I
Christian
think
friends in general. What about them?
like my close friends have the same mentality, but I've had friends, sadly, some in college who I know they've not waited until marriage,
Mm,
and I've heard a lot of the car, the how do you know if you don't like test drive it
right.
type of
Yeah.
mentality. And so it's kind of like, yes, but a person is not a car.
Yeah.
But yes, it's more open. I know a lot of people when they've gone to the point where where they're about to get married, they feel shame in a way because they didn't wait.
Hmm.
Um, I've heard this from people like I've run into their reels on Instagram or friends that they're like, I regret not waiting.
Yeah.
But it's the norm.
It's the norm. Okay. Okay. And I actually didn't know. So interesting to know. I have a teenager, but he's not in your age range. So I know, didn't know what you guys, what happens. But I do know from my age range, it was the same concept, like wait till you get
Mm,
married. But I'm not sure if the girls waited to get married because they really believe what you just said, or they believed it was a command from God and they had to follow the commands, like to,
mm, mhm,
to follow what God says. And so I think that's where I don't know because I think I was I I was more of a rule follower back then. So obviously, I was a rule follower. But I think honestly, Neelam, a lot of Christian girls follow those rules, assuming that they'll get married young. So that's the
mm,
problem. When they don't get married young, like I told you before in a previous video, I did not. I got married when I was 30, I believe. Wait, maybe
mhm,
32. I can't remember because I'm 52. So I think I was like 32. So I was way past the norm. And so
mm,
I think that's some of the issue with my generation, where we didn't have some of the struggles that you girls have because we got married. Most of us got married younger. I did not, and actually for some reason my friend group didn't either. I don't really know why.
wow.
Maybe because of college. I think sometimes going to college also prolongs that. I don't know. And
Mhm,
so we didn't have the we knew that you're supposed to wait. We knew, especially for girls. It seemed like there's a different standard for boys, even Christian.
yeah,
There's a different
yeah.
standard. It's not spoken sometimes, but it's unspoken sometimes. And so I think the struggle, you may disagree with me, for your generation is that you guys as a whole seem to get married a little bit older. Is that true?
I think so. I have had a couple. I went to a Christian college, so would hear the ring by spring thing, and it became chaotic in that girls were so like scared to either graduate single, so they would kind of like see whoever was available. But sadly, I've seen a lot of divorces. Like
Yes.
as the years have gone by,
Mhm.
most of them are not together anymore.
Yep. Yep. And that was my next question because also I went to a Christian college for, I won't name his name, for my undergraduate. And there's a high, I think, and I'm not, don't quote me completely, but I think it was like I said, 55% divorce rate.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, how could that be? And again, it goes back to the
Mm.
same thing. It's like, how can it be that high in a Christian college type of thing? And so I think you're seeing the same thing. And I think the reason is because of the pressure to get married to have sex. That's what I think. What do you think, Neelam?
And maybe it's not necessarily to have sex, but it's the pressure of because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Like, um, if or what's expected, kind of, because I've also seen in churches that that's also what they've pressured, like, oh, it's good to get married young, and I'm not against it, and like I think every situation is different. My brother got married young,
Hmm.
and his marriage is great. I mean, of course, with its highs and lows, like any other relationship, but I don't think like I think that that's the focus. And as you say, I've heard that more often than not, because it became like a thing about guys commenting, and this is in a non-Christian side, but I think I've even heard Christians comment on it about body count and
Hmm.
why for guys
Hmm.
it's not that big of a deal, and it's actually like seen as something positive, whilst for girls it isn't. And I've also ended up seeing a lot of single moms because of that,
Yep.
because either they felt pressure to have sex because or but because of their boyfriend, and then the boyfriend ended up like leaving them and getting married with someone else. I don't know, but I have seen like that being the case a lot. There's a lot of in church today. I think there's a lot of single moms in from like mid 20s to mid 30s, like
Okay.
just yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of
Okay.
like the
I
case.
didn't realize that. Again, because I'm in a
Mm.
different, and you think probably again, can you explain to our listeners what is a body count? Because they may not know what that means.
No, body count is kind of like just how many people you've slept with.
Okay.
You've had sex with.
So for a boy or man, I guess a man, it'll be like a badge of honor, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Where to me it's always weird. It's like, okay, if you have a body count, then the girl's part of it. So why can't she get a badge of honor? But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And I think that that's the part where you're talking about in the beginning, how what God has given us is precious and guarded. And I think it's for that reason because it's something about girls that are different than boys, and it
Yes.
always has been. I mean, my grandmother would talk about it, and she's like 85, and you're what's your age? And I'm 52. So it's still where we're seen as more precious, as more, I don't know what it is. I'm not saying it's always right, but where a man can say those type of things. If a woman went around saying, especially a Christian woman, running around saying I had 100 body count, they'll be calling her all kinds of names, as we know. But for a guy, they wouldn't do that. And I think, and that
Yes.
goes back to what you're talking about a lot of, I'm assuming Christian young ladies being left with babies, never unwanted. I mean, to me, I can't say unwanted. They were left
Mhm.
with babies, and I think Neelan, do you think that if a girl would, do you think there's a such thing as that Christians should have like sex education talk, like for girls
Oh,
particular?
yes.
Do
Yes,
you? Okay, explain to
100%.
me.
Yes.
Explain.
It's actually something that I've like really I am I don't know, I really, really feel so strongly about. And I've talked about this with friends. Um, so the thing is, I feel like the world throws things at like in shows today, even if it says PG-13, you're seeing sex scenes, you're seeing a lot of that. And so, of course, in our minds, it's like, oh, like it's just little things that we start letting sin come in. And I think that if the world is educating us in that way, why shouldn't like we as Christians
Mm,
educate in that? Like because it comes to the point where if you talk about sex, it's like, oh no, like we don't talk about that, and you
Mhm.
only talk about it when you're about to get married. But it's like no, like it's a topic. We are also sexual beings. We need to learn and educate ourselves about
Mhm.
that, just because it's part of learning of who we are and God's specific and intent, like what he meant it for. It was not so that, yes, because it feels good, or no, because it's like that becoming one of what the Lord is saying, like becoming one body, and whatever hurts the husband hurts the wife, and that's the whole point of it. And I remember we had a talk when I was like in high school, and they gave the example of like the paper. If you would like glue two pieces of paper together and you rip them apart, one piece stays with one. And it's not just in a spiritual sense or emotional sense, but also in a physical sense. Like there's been studies that they say that if you slept with someone and you sleep with someone else, that person is, it's like if that person slept with the people you've slept before.
Mhm.
And so it's just like it just again shows and is proof of like why God intended marriage, sex to be for marriage.
For
Like
marriage.
one, yeah, because even like before there wasn't like quote unquote saying weddings, like what we do now, like the whole ceremony and stuff. When you become one, it's that the act, the sexual act is when you're becoming one with that person. So it's like not just because of your flesh, it's really something that's deeper, it's more spiritual. So I think educating even teenagers, because it's that curiosity that they have to be like, this is beautiful, it's something God created and it can be talked about, and there's a safe place for it to talk about, even if you don't want to talk about it with your parents because it's embarrassing, but to have a place for it. Because if not, we're gonna turn to the world, and the world's gonna be like, yeah, oh, do whatever you want, and whatever you're feeling is good.
You said 3 points I wanna remember. You said that, of course, there should be sex education for Christians, and I laugh because my generation, you're gonna laugh, Neelam. When I was in high school, because I went to public high school, they had
Mm,
that's I guess that's when they first started doing sex education, and so parents had
mm,
to sign it. So I told my mom to not to sign it, say no, because I was a Christian. So I didn't want to learn about that. So that was my comment. My mom would have been fine. My mom was like a hippie. She probably would have cared. But I was like, oh no, I don't need to hear this. I don't need to hear this. But I'm laughing because I think a lot of us thought that during that time frame, like it's like you don't learn about it until, and I think this is girls, not boys. And I think a lot of times that's why boys come into marriage with more information than we did, especially in
mm,
my generation. And I think for you to say that, of course, I'm like, yeah, of course, because I think it goes back to empowering the girl, and not in a feminist kind of way, but saying that, hey, I'm important and the body that God gave me is important, so therefore I need to know what I'm doing. I know why God has created me to do this. So it's not I'm just blindly saying, here I am, honey, whatever. That you're
mm,
not saying that. And I think that's definitely different from my generation. And even now, I have a friend, and I mean, we're adults and we're talking about stuff, and she'll start whispering about it, whispering. I'm like, why are you whispering? It's like we're not talking about anything inappropriate, but it's this
yeah.
mindset from our age, from my age range, and older, like my grandmother and my mother, that shh, it's quiet, don't talk about it, don't talk about it. Or like if when a girl starts her cycle, don't mention anything about it, don't you? Or like with me when I'm going through menopause, don't talk about it. I'm like, there's ways of talking about everything that's in a clean and a biblically a biblically
Yes.
way that's informative for those who are involved. And so you said that, and then you also said about how research talks about how if you're hooking up all these different partners, that residue of them is going to be part of you. And I think
Mm,
that from a Christian mindset, I completely understand it. And you said because you said that the act of love making or sex is spiritual, and I think that's the difference between a Christian probably in a non-Christian, they're going to think I'm just doing what I do. It's just a natural act. But for a
mm,
Christian, we're saying that we're uniting ourselves together as one, like just as God, the Father, the Holy Spirit unite as one, or Jesus say His whatever. We're coming back together as one.
mhm,
And so then, if we're sharing all of this oneness with everyone, it's gonna get all mixed up, is what I'm saying. And I think for you to say that is exactly right. And I don't think I definitely did not realize that. I didn't realize there's such a spiritual component of of sex, because again it was such a
Hmm.
dirty, not dirty, but you just don't talk about your marriage. I'm not explaining my generation. And so
Hmm.
but I definitely realized that it's a spiritual component. That's why, like when a partner dies, sometimes, I know not in your case, not your parents, sometimes the other partner will die soon after, because they're
Hmm.
connected together spiritually. Not it's,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that, and I never understood that until I got married. I actually cannot imagine my life without my husband. I can't,
Mm.
and I'm gonna cry. And we've only been married for 21 years, but I can't.
Mm.
I see people who go through that, and obviously I will at one point, but I can imagine it right now because we are glued, as you said, together spiritually and emotionally, all those things, and that comes from the blessing that God gives of the sacred act of marriage, of sex in marriage. But
Mm.
I think that if we, it seems like my generation reverences it so much we don't talk about it. Where I could be wrong, Neelam. Where your generation is like, let's talk about everything, and it's not, none of it is important, and let's just, there's no ramifications for anything. Am I
Yeah.
correct on that? Yeah, it's like it's just do whatever, just do you, boo. I don't know,
Yeah.
just do
Exactly.
whatever you feel, and it doesn't matter. And I definitely know, I don't know, but I'm not a man. I know for girls that's not true because we get
Mm.
emotionally attached, and there's no way that's true. And so I know that's not true. So going back to what about what about children outside of marriage? Does your generation see that as a taboo, especially as Christians?
Oof. Yes. Actually, I ran into this account of this girl who I don't know how her account, like, she puts up reels and she's like, "Oh, if you're single and you're a girl, like, ask questions to guys and guys respond." And so, like, there's been a lot of couples that have gotten married through her Instagram account because they connect through there. But one time she also like talks about different topics, but one time I don't know why it became very like kind of heated of like different point of view, especially from men versus women, because there's a lot of single moms, like
Hmm.
who either came to Christ after
Hmm.
like being moms, or they grew up in church and then they strayed because of the boyfriend and the boyfriend left them and now they have a kid, or even like they they got married and they got divorced,
Hmm.
all that. Um, and so there was this guy saying, well, what's wrong about wanting like a wife who doesn't have kids? And all the women got like mad because it's like, well, that's not fair. And I'm just like, it's because it's that like right now we're living with the consequences of our actions. So
Hmm.
it's learning how to walk through that. Um, one is if you are a Christian guy, do better.
Hmm.
Like just because you're a guy doesn't mean that you are free of like to go around and have sex. Um, and as women, it's like let God kind of heal that, and that those children are loved. Like God is the creator and he doesn't make mistakes in that sense. But we do have to live with some consequences of our actions, especially if we decide to consciously do things knowing the result or knowing that it's probably not something that pleases God. But I do think that there needs to be men to stand up to be able to take charge of those kids, because if not, it becomes a cycle. And it's like being raised by a single mom, meeting dad. I do think that the family is important, and I'm not bashing to single parents. Like my respects because they have to fulfill two roles. But I think if you have the chance to be that blessing, and I've seen a couple of friends who have married a girl who has a kid or has one or two kids, and they are that figure, and they are that example, and just the love that they have for the kids. It's pretty amazing seeing that. But it's it's interesting. It's not a topic that people really like to talk about.
And I think too, you're saying so eloquently. If a person's never been in that girl's shoes, it's easy to say what they think she should do or not do or be,
Mm.
or, and I think that's the whole thing. I've never been a single mom, but I've known single moms, and I've known Christian single moms, and I know, especially in my age range, with the stigma of that, which a lot of times to cover it up, they'll you get married to, so you would
Mm.
whatever. But I think that like you said, that God is basically, you're saying God is a God of grace, And that,
Mm,
but there are also consequences for our behaviors, and that's the difficult part of when that happens. It doesn't mean the child is a mistake, because children are never mistakes, ever. But
mm,
there are consequences, and I guess I can see why a Christian woman would be upset with a man that's sad on marrying one with kids, because he's basically saying that she's used goods.
mm,
Well, but yet he would still marry a woman who had premarital sex, as long as as long as there's no kids shown. So that's a double standard. And
yeah.
again, that's the thing. A lot of times it seems like to me, Neelam, that your generation doesn't, you girls don't understand that there is a double standard. And there is one. I think we understand that clearly in our generation, which is why sometimes we put up we walked in a straight line and we did the right things, because we understood there's a standard for men and a standard for
Mm,
women. And I heard one
mm,
time, and I'm not pro abortion at all. This is not even about abortion, but I was watching this movie and it was talking about how it was an older lady in an abortion clinic. It was a Christian movie, and she says, back in my time, girls didn't get pregnant as much because we knew that the consequences was going to fall on us. Like, they knew that, so they made the man marry them. Where our girls in
mm,
your generation a lot of times think, I'm the same as him. I can do what I want to do. I can be who I want to be,
mm,
and but it's not true, and we can see that consistently against ages, different cultures. It's that a lot of times, and there are men who stand up, who come up, but a lot of times the woman's left with the bag, so to speak,
mm,
of a wonderful, precious baby, to raise, and sometimes with a husband, eventually, sometimes not, And I think that's where it brings it back to. I think for us as women, I told my husband, if I had a girl, I would be telling her, you need to interview him. You ask him all the questions, all the hard questions. If you're gonna get married, you need to talk about sex. If you don't feel comfortable, go to a therapist, because even once you get married, it's all complications inside of that. You need to have somebody that you trust, because that is the glue to keep you together. And so if you're angry at each
mm,
other, if you're going through things, or if somebody passes, like your mom passed, or like I had my grandmother pass, that you're gonna want to know how to come back together. And so you still may need counsel at some point. But I think, like I said, I think it seems like men are not afraid to talk about these things and laugh and giggle, where girls don't talk about it at all. Or it's the bad girls that talk about it all the time. Where I think it's us
yeah.
as Christians, especially your age, you are precious, and whoever you choose to give yourself to, or whoever God brings you to, you should be able to be a part of the conversation, and not just show up as the package you're ready for to
Mm,
be unwrapped, so to speak. So I think that this topic is one. I know it's not controversial necessarily, but it's like the way it's dealt with. I think it could be handled better in both generations, because I think that if my generation was more open, then we would have more freedom to realize that God, like, this is not dirty. That God made us for a
mm,
reason, just like He made a man, and that we need to respect it, but also be okay with talking about it, obviously within boundaries, with people that we trust. And for your generation to realize that, hey, I'm important, I'm loved, I have a purpose, so I have to protect what, like you said, my special gift that God has given me to eventually give to someone, not everyone. So this conversation, I think, is the first one I've ever had online. So I really am glad I had it with you, because I think you come at it from a very mature point of view, but also real. I mean, you're out there, and I know all what's going on in your age group, and you realize that it is complicated. But the bottom line, it's not. It's coming back to that we're all created in God's image. So we want to honor what He's created us and how He's created us. And so I appreciate our conversation. Thank you guys again for
yeah.
joining me and my girl Neelam. Not just my girl Neelam, and we will be back again with our conversations with Coffee Talk with Generation X and
Millennial.
Millennials. I'm gonna remember next time. Bye bye,
Yeah.
guys.